Alright, let's deal with another one. Really, I should have expected this. Hey guys, it's Castaway here, coming at you with a new video all about VR. And yes, I was finally able to play around VR with the HTC Vive. But Castaway, you're about as broke as the Cuban government. How on earth were you able to play on an HTC Vive? Well, it's simple, really. I went up to the Windows store up at the Galleria Mall in St. Louis and played a few rounds of VR. There was this weird space thing. I got to play Job Simulator and Space Pirate Training. That were the 3 VR games I were able to do. So you still don't own one? These are my initial responses, okay? Quit interrupting me and let me just get on with the video. Alright, let's start. I wanted to start off this video just by saying I had a fun time. I'm not gonna lie. It was fun, it was enjoyable, and for it was, I liked it. But here's the thing. I enjoyed it for what it was. And knowing my obnoxious self on the way home, concerns about VR and stuff like that came flooding into my mind. Because that's how I am. I can never just enjoy things. Or have nice things, really. Not even a quiet state of mind, either. Isn't that right? Voices in my head, 1, 2, 3, and 74. Alright, but really let's get into the meat and greet of this video. My concerns about VR, and is it worth it as of now? The biggest elephant in the room out of all of them right now has to be the cost. The cost is just way too much for the average gamer just to get. It is a very luxury item that is made for the very high-end gamers that are just too far and too between. The PC I was on at the Galleria Mall had a GTX 1070, an i7 6600K, and 16 gigabytes of RAM. If you know much about PC, that's nothing to turn away from. That is a beastly rig that can run anything, really. And for most, they just can't afford that. Like, most people like me who on PCs have budget rigs. In fact, the GTX 970 is one of the most popular cards right now, and it's a few years old, and it's perfect for 1080p gaming. Hell, it's not good enough for VR. And to say, go ahead and spend $700 so you can get an HTC Vive, or $400 to get an Oculus Rift, just so they can, spend that on some games, because not a lot of games are out there with VR. And there are a lot of VR games, it's just how many of them people want to play. And yes, I know that's subjective. It's just at the Galleria booth there weren't that many VR games, and I haven't seen many people beg for different types of VR games. Let's see, the next part of the video, which I'm going to tie into that, is limitations of VR. VR is going to limit the type of games that you can play and how you can play. You are confined to a small space and you have no idea what's going on around you. In the real world, that is. You are very likely to accidentally hurt yourself in VR. If it weren't for probably the small, confined, empty space in the Galleria and telling me not to go anywhere, I probably would have hit something. Yes, it's perfect for the rail shooter, and we'll go back to that. But there are just so many games that I just don't see with VR, like Fallout. You're gonna need, I know Fallout VR is a big thing. You're gonna need like a treadmill, like a set of treadmills or something, or the world's biggest replica of the Commonwealth, or just go back to 1950s Boston, nuke it, and wait 200 years. That seems like the best solution. And to see things like Battlefield, how the physical terrain around you is constantly changing, that just won't be able to happen in VR. It's a limitation of the technology, and really, you can't do anything like that. It's against, you can't. It will never be like that. VR will never be that accessible, and it will never be that realistic. That is why most of the popular VR games right now are ones where you stand still and just press A, move your wand around and press A at something when you see it. Another thing is the human limitations. In VR, you're supposed to be very immersed and not know what around you is fake. The thing is, in the back of your mind, it's always going to be, let's say, I know this isn't fake. But really, it felt real. It did. It really did for a little bit. But the problem is, you are encouraged to take breaks. You are going to get nauseous or your eyes are going to hurt. There's nothing to it. Your eyes are literally in front of a screen. It's like if you put your phone all the way up to your eyes and sat there for 20 minutes. It's a human limitation. It's the way our bodies are designed. There's nothing around it. That's probably, if VR was accessible, what'll keep it from taking off. I know it's taking off, sort of, but not everyone has a VR headset, and it's not going to be as accessible as console or PC gaming. And from what I hear, even the console PlayStation VR is not that good, going at a cheaply only one screen in the headset as opposed to two, just to cut off some of the cost, and it not being at least 90 FPS. The thing with VR, it has to be constant or you're going to throw up. There's nothing about it. It has to be over 90 and constant. No stuttering, no nothing like that. And as VR games get more intense and more intense, the consoles are not going to keep up. That's simply how the console architecture is and how you're not able to upgrade semi-lifespans unless you get something like a Steam machine, which is pretty cool. I encourage you getting one of those. If you want to get a console, I encourage you getting the Alienware Alpha. I know it's not a console, but it's basically as close as you can get to a PC console. Just plop it in the middle of your living room, turn it on, go on the couch, and grab your Xbox controller, connect it to it, and you'll be dandy. Right, the last negative point I want to bring up is, will companies actually want to go through this? As in the sense, do they want to spend all this money just to get to a niche market? I know niches can be pretty big. Games like The Last Guardian and Shadow of the Colossus, those are a niche, and they're a really good niche. Don't get me wrong. But the problem is, it is really expensive to develop for VR as well, and you get almost nothing in return for making VR games. And the fact that mainstream games like Call of Duty, if Activision wants to go with VR, the closest thing they're gonna have to do is make a warehouse constructed specifically for each map and specifically for each game mode, because you run, you vault, you take cover behind objects. That's how the game works. It's constantly changing the playing field, and VR would never be able to keep up. And put this into a financial perspective. Would they want to have probably 10 warehouses in each country of just VR with lines all the way to the back, being accessible to only a certain amount of people each day, and having to constantly spend money on cleaning the VR headsets and making sure all the gaming PCs are correct, and having probably the gaming PC backpack things that Corsair has made? Would they want to do that, or just stick to the regular architecture of making physical games that are accessible to everyone of any age? Which one would they choose? But that was my last negative point. I have one last point about VR that might bring this all the way around, back to what I was saying about rail shooters and stuff. I think VR might be the revival of the arcade. Let's put this into perspective. It's like in the 80s. Not everyone was able to have the high-end hardware in order to play the games. Most of the ports to consoles from game cabinets were not up to par. If you look at the Double Dragon on NES, then compare it to the, let's say, the arcade machine, or if you look at the Sega Genesis port of Street Fighter, then you look at the arcade machine, or either game like that was ported onto there, they do not look as good. They do not look nearly as good. And if you say so, you are wrong. But now, this renaissance that I'm predicting here might come up. Not everyone will be able to have VR, but those cabinets, the cabinets you can go into in arcade machines, like, at Dave & Buster's and stuff, like how there's the rail shooters. Imagine that, but with VR. You would go up to a Dave & Buster's or something, and there would be VR. Go to a Chuck E. Cheese, and there would be VR, like the rail shooters. Like a Time Crisis that's in VR. That is perfect for virtual reality. Rail shooters and things like that. Point and clicks. Nothing like that. It's perfect. You sit down and just look around and shoot things. It's perfect for VR. It can definitely keep up. That is how VR might reach the masses. You need to have arcade machines that are VR. That is the last bastion for virtual reality. Alright, that's enough of me ragging on about virtual reality. Now it's time to talk about what's going on my channel. I've been working on this project for a little while about my budget PC, and I've been benchmarking it because I have an upcoming video all about what it's like to game on a budget PC and is it really worth it. And to put it short, yes, and there will be benchmarks in it, and we'll also detail my experience comparing my console experience to my PC experience over the last 12 months because I've had my PC for about a year or so, which is great. I can finally get a comparison. There aren't that many comparisons of what it's like to have a current gen console and a budget PC at the same time. I've never seen a video like that, and I'm hoping to bring something new to the table. So be willing to check that out. I don't know what's going to be around. There's going to be like 10 plus games being tested. Be sure to buckle up and it'll be ready. Remember to leave a like, subscribe, and do all that sort of stuff. Remember to turn on notifications because the YouTube thing is being wacky. And always remember to give your opinion in the comments section. I'm always glad I never delete comments or report for spam. Really, just go nuts in the comment section. Remember to leave a like if you agree, leave a like if you dislike, because people have been doing that plenty. Even if I make a non-controversial video, I know I'm just going to get a hate sub one day. My first haters I already gotten, man. Oh, by the way, I also am looking forward to where my channel is going. It's almost the 1 year anniversary. Next month will be the 1 year anniversary. I'm excited. I will probably do a 1 year special for that, and it'll be great. It'll be a best of. Remember to watch that. Just be sure. Remember to sub and turn on notifications and state your opinions. You have a nice day.